Zone clear. No infected sighted. Continuing search for objectives. Ah. Active computer. Looks promising. Wait. What? Oh. Some sort of board game. Wait, where are the instructions?
Oh, that thing does not agree with my hair. What's up, guys? It's Max. Today, we are finally going over EXFIL Co-op Hazard Recon. I'm gonna teach you guys how to play, how to fight, and how to win. And we're gonna have a good time doing it because I spent way too long on this script and I am way too excited for it to not be a good one. So, finally, let's get right into it.
Cracking open the box, you'll find a variety of decks. Each player begins by picking out their squad card, which includes trackers and rules reference. You're then going to need a color-coordinated meeple and 3 trackers. Red tracker is for health, place it at the top. And then the yellow and blue ones are tech and ammo. They start at 4. It's time to get some equipment together. There are 3 types of loadout cards, and each player gets 1 of each. Primary weapons deal a lot of damage, but also take the most resources. Secondary weapons will be used more often, and always have some sort of utility attached to them. Gadget cards are unique tools that let you focus on offense, defense, or exploration with your team. Throwing everything together, here's a recommended arrangement for all the items you've chosen. By now, you've probably noticed the item deck. Just shuffle it and set it aside. It contains consumable items you'll find as you go. Next up, let's set up the tiles. You're going to have 4 different types. The standard tile, the EXFIL tile, the cache or safe tile, and the objective tile. Split them by type and set up according to player count. For 1 or 2 players, you're going to need 10 gray tiles. For 3 or 4, you're going to need 12 gray tiles. As for the blue tiles, you're going to need 1 for 1 to 2, or 2 for 3 to 4. Be sure to shuffle them up to get a different experience every time as they have different values. For the green objective tiles, you're going to need 1 for 1 to 2 players, or 2 for 3 to 4. Go ahead and grab all those tiles and shuffle them together. As for the yellow EXFIL tile, this is the starting spot, so put all your meeple on it. Next up, we have the hazard cards. There's 3 different varieties, each one with different types of encounters. The final hazard, high hazard, and low hazard all have different uses. The final hazard, by its name, acts as a final boss, containing very difficult enemies for the endgame. High hazard cards are added to the main deck as the game goes on, and they include harder variations of challenges you've already faced, as well as a couple of surprise enemy types. The low hazard deck is your bread and butter. It's what you start with and what the baseline of the entire game system runs off of, having a bunch of basic encounters and events to keep the game going. Using the different lists outlined in the instructions, go ahead and separate the low hazard deck with all the cards you're going to have in the game and the ones you're going to keep out of rotation. A reminder that the outlines in the book are simply a baseline to work off of. Your mileage may vary, so it's recommended that you find the best fit for you and your table. The same rules apply for the high hazard deck. Just go by the recommended settings and then feel it out as you play more games. Just keep in mind to shuffle both of these decks thoroughly, but separately. The final hazard, once again, is only recommended for a full table. Shuffle both cards and draw 1, leaving it face down for a dramatic reveal at the end of the game. That does it for setting up the game itself. Be sure to leave enough space to shuffle, reshuffle, draw, and discard all of these types. Extra components in the box include multiple dice, card clips, and a couple extra trackers. Now, believe it or not, the only die you'll be rolling is the D4. All other dice are used to track things like enemy health and objectives. Hard clips are to give the hazards a bit more table presence, and we'll get into the other trackers later. Now that you have everything set up, you might be a bit confused on what to do or where to go. To reference all your actions, check your squad card. It gives you a basic outline of everything you can do in the game. To move, refer to the caution tape on the sides of the tiles. These are directions you're allowed to go in. Open doors. If a door leads to an empty space, grab a tile from the top of the stack and lay it down, lining the sides up however you'd like, so long as the tape attaches. Revealing a tile and moving into it takes up the same number of actions as it would to just move between tiles. 1. Remember, you can only move between clearly marked paths, and you can only do so orthogonally, up, down, left, and right. If you have a target you want to attack, first, make sure you're within line of sight, being able to draw a straight line between you and the enemy. Range does not matter unless explicitly said so. Despite one of your loadout cards not being a weapon, all three of them follow the same format. Using a gadget or firing a weapon, you're going to want to first reduce the resource as marked on the card from your own inventory. Then, dole out damage with its intended modifiers or effects based off of how the card is written. Item cards are very similar, although they're one-time use consumables that don't take up a resource. Simply read the card's description, discard it, and apply the effects to your character or environment. Next on the list is interacting with tiles, and this applies to two types specifically, the blue and green ones. Simply follow the rules on the tile, and deplete one of your actions. Lastly, and most important to clarify, is trading. If the current active player is on a tile with their squad mate, they can trade one action per type of resource or item. Remember, it's only the active player that can do this, and they can't take items from their teammate. Alright, sweet, you're using your actions, moving around the board, but what do all the different types of tiles do? Let's go over it together. The first, and only on the first time a player enters a new gray hazard tile, they draw from the active hazard deck. The hazard, unless stated otherwise, is deployed in the same room. Once resolved, it goes in a discard pile with all the other current hazard cards. Blue rooms are safe rooms with a stock of items and resources for the player to take from. The starting stock level is 3. Every time a player spends an action to pick a resource from the menu, they reduce the stock level by 1. This room can be left behind and come back to later by other players. But as soon as the stock hits 0 and all players have left, the tile is discarded. To discard any tile, you're going to want to put it in the bottom of the deck instead of its own stack. It allows the map to rotate. The green objective tiles are the most important. Walking inside, you can spend an action and a tech point in order to clear an objective needed to win the game. You're going to need to resolve an equal number of these rooms as there are players in order to escape. You can use one of the included dice to track the number of points you have, how close you are to getting out. Once resolved, this one's put in the bottom of the deck like all the others. Every time the squad gains a point, take a high hazard card and shuffle it into the current active low hazard deck. With that, a new threat is put into rotation. Every player at the table has 3 actions, and once the round is complete, the resolution round begins. Let's say this player is at the tail end of the turn order. They just finished out by moving twice and dropping a flash grenade. Any active enemies will move towards their target, and then after that, the flashbang will explode. These rules apply to other hazards as well. Enemies will move first, and then the more passive items and hazards will activate. Let's take a brief look at the enemies, the biohazards in the game. There might be copies of the same type, but they have different statuses, having a health value, a speed value, a damage value, and a loot value. as well as a special description of what they can do. For instance, this character can move one space towards its target per activation, but it also has an ability where if it's adjacent to its target at the end of its turn, it can jump in and immediately deal damage. If a player decides to retaliate an attack instead of running away, and the enemy's health is reduced to 0, the player that delivered the killing blow gets the loot that's listed on their card. The player that draws the hazard card and deploys it is its first target. They can run away, but the enemy will follow. Other players can draw its attention by being the only player in line of sight or by attacking it. When a player is damaged, they subtract the value of that damage from their health tracker. When a player's health is reduced to 0, they're in a critical state and cannot move. If a team member does not deliver a healing item to them by their next turn, the game is over. EXFIL is a fully cooperative game. Either everyone makes it out, or no one does. Once the final point has been collected, you've now entered the endgame, and if you opted into a final hazard, it spawns on the EXFIL tile. I hope you stocked up on ammo, because now it's your team's primary objective to take this thing down. Once it's defeated, or if you didn't choose a final hazard at all, your only goal left is to make it to the EXFIL tile safe. So, since we have the basics down, I see it fit that we go over all the specific items, starting with the consumable single-use items. Health Kit. Discard to gain health for either yourself or a teammate on the same tile. Spare Ammo. Discard in place of ammo, applying a +1 to the roll result. If a 1 is rolled, take the damage. Discussed earlier, you would have to reduce your ammo resource in order to fire a weapon. This negates that. Discarding this gives you a free shot. Note that the modifier is applied on top of whatever your weapon can already do. Heart Mine. Discard to place in your current tile. When a biohazard enters the same tile, every occupant takes 3 damage. That includes players. Adrenaline Shot. Discard to gain an action immediately, losing 1 health. Does not consume an action. Normally, you'd get 3 actions per turn. Discarding this at the beginning of your turn gives you 4 instead. But remember, you do have to take that little bit of damage. These do stack though, so that could be interesting. Flash Grenade. Discard to place in your current or connecting tile. At the end of the round, all occupants are stunned. The Flash Grenade is unique because it explodes on a set timer at the end of the round after everything is moved, even the hazards. You see, when a player is stunned, they lose 1 of their 3 actions. This effect does not stack, thankfully. For biohazards, they lose their entire turn. Moving on to loadout cards. Our first gadget card is the biometric scanner. It costs 1 tech to use. When used, reveal the top card in the active hazard deck. Keep it revealed until it is either used or the deck is reshuffled. Recon Drone allows players to look ahead by placing down tiles without moving into them. Just like with any other card, be sure to drop the resource, in this case 1 tech, before using it. Now, for 1 action and tech point per use, you can place down an adjacent tile. If you wish to spend the points and actions, you can do this multiple times in the turn, allowing the player to draw a new path. Next up, we have the holographic sight. Once per turn, use when spending any firearm to re-roll the attack. At the cost of 1 tech point, you get to ensure that you have a second chance if your roll goes south. Next up, let's go over the squad radio. Once per turn, allow a teammate of choice to perform 1 action immediately. This does not consume 1 of your actions. It costs 2 tech points, but the utility is unrivaled. It allows the user to select another player on their team to move in any direction, attack, trade, or whatever. Moving on, let's head into damage dealers with your secondary weapons. First up is the combat knife. 1 instant damage. The target must be in the same tile. This weapon immediately does 1 point of damage, no roll required. When you attack, you immediately move to an adjacent tile. You don't have to move, but it's an all or nothing thing. The stun baton is another instant damage, no roll, up close weapon. However, its high cost of 2 tech points is reflected in its use. Much like the same effect as a flash grenade, but only on one target. It stuns an enemy, stopping them from moving on their next turn. The service pistol. Roll for damage, -1. Ranged attack. If a 4 is rolled, you may fire again without spending another action, but still spending ammo. 1 ammo per shot. Now, all range attacks must be done within direct line of sight of your target. And as shown, even though the maximum damage on this weapon is 3, rolling a 4 gets you that bonus action mentioned earlier, where you can fire again. The Viper Magnum. Roll for damage. Ranged attack. If the roll result is a 1 or 2, no damage is dealt. It requires 1 ammo per shot. The trick with this gun is that it does slightly more damage than the pistol, but has a larger chance of dealing no damage at all. Time to check out the bigger pieces of kit, the primary weapons. Starting with the pick saw. Roll for damage. Requires 2 actions to use and the target must be on the same tile. No ammo. This weapon is built perfectly to complement playstyles that are more conservative. The Smart SMG. Roll for damage. Ranged attack. A tech point can be spent in place of 1 ammo point when firing. Starting cost, 2 ammo. This weapon is built for players who would rather put their tech points into firepower. Riot Shotgun. Roll for damage, +1. Ranged attack. For every tile from your target, -1 to the total roll. 2 ammo. To clarify, in the immediate tile, you can do up to 5 damage, and then 4, 3, and 2 on a roll of 4. This is the perfect weapon to ensure a clean follow-up or finisher. The Rebar Launcher. Roll for damage, +1. Ranged attack. If a 4 is rolled, +1 damage to the total roll. 3 ammo per use. Self-explanatory, same damage at all ranges with a maximum damage of 6 on a roll of 4. Perfect for players who want to focus on long-range support. First gadget, we have the Recon Drone. 1 action per use, draw the next tile and reveal it, placing it in an adjacent space. For 1 tech per use, you can reveal an adjacent tile without stepping into it and activating it. You can even do it multiple times per turn in a row if you choose. Just make sure that all the doors line up as if you were walking through it yourself. The Squad Radio. Once per turn, allow a teammate of choice to perform 1 action immediately. This does not consume one of your actions. For 2 tech points per use, you can make any other player on the board, regardless of turn order, move, attack, trade with another player nearby, or use an item. Holographic Sight. Once per turn, spend when using a firearm to re-roll the attack. This must be applied before making the first roll. Basically, treat it like ammo, consuming the resource before making the first roll. It's a bit of insurance for if you miss. The Biometric Scanner. Once per resolution, reveal the top card in the active hazard deck and keep it face up. It stays on top of the deck until drawn. 1 point per use. This one has its benefits, but be careful, it locks in whoever's on top of the deck. With that, we've finished our overview of how to play EXFIL Co-op Hazard Recon. If I've left anything out, namely the monsters, it's because I don't want there to be any spoilers for first-time playthrough. This project has been absolutely insane. It's taken me well over a year to produce, and I'm super excited with how it's turned out. You can keep up with all my future projects on Instagram, and all of them are available for purchase, print on demand on thegamecrafter.com. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy EXFIL Co-op Hazard Recon.